One Piece is a GOAT tier anime, but it's still not safe from criticism. Some say it's too long, some say the pacing is unbearable, others say the animation used to be trash, the story is dragging, or the fandom's annoying. So today, I'm talking about every major critique of One Piece, and whether it's valid or not. So let's start with the big one. The show is too long. One Piece has over 1,000 episodes, and it's definitely a commitment. For some fans, it's just too much. But I also know people who have watched Dragon Ball and Naruto through multiple times, and that's where it becomes an unfair critique. Yes, it's long, but so are other great animes, and that length is what allows deep world building, complex characters, and an emotional payoff you just don't get in shorter animes. Still, if you're a casual viewer, it can definitely be overwhelming. And I used to be one of those people who said One Piece was too long, so I fully understand it. But One Piece is trying to go back and fix it by animating old arcs and speeding up the arc length by like half the episode. So is this critique fair? I'd say only for a small group of people like the newer watchers or the casual watchers who don't want to watch anything longer than 100 episodes. Now I'd say the biggest critique is the pacing. Pacing One Piece can be like a snail with ankle weights, and ever since that anime caught up to the manga, Toei started stretching one chapter per episode, and it ended up being a lot of recaps, flashbacks, and lingering reaction shots. And even One Piece fans have to embrace how bad the pacing can get at some point, like Dressrosa or Wano or the fight against Katakuri. But again, they are reanimating it to speed up the pacing, so it's a perfect time to start watching One Piece, I'd say. So is this critique fair? Definitely in some areas of the anime. The third critique is the animation. One of the biggest complaints about early One Piece is that the animation was trash. But let's clear something up. Art style is not animation quality. So yes, the characters look round, flat, and sometimes off, but that was mostly just Oda's early art style, not a lack of effort. And if you go back and watch scenes like Luffy vs. Blueno, Enies lobby fights, or even Impel Down, you'll find some incredibly fluid animation, even by today's standards. The issue is people compare Wano's movie quality animation to arcs from 20 years ago with weekly deadlines and no breaks. And to be fair, did they cut corners in some areas? Maybe, but that's the nature of a long-running anime. But when you look at the animation from Wano to current, it's great. So is this criticism valid? I'd say criticism of the art style is fair because it's not for everyone, but calling the animation bad is just not fair. Another critique One Piece faces is that there's too many characters. With every arc, One Piece introduces new characters, a lot of them. So sure, One Piece has a massive cast, but that's the point. It's not just telling one story, it's building an entire world. Every character, even the minor ones, help make that world feel real. You don't criticize a fantasy epic like Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings for having too many characters, because that's what an immersive universe needs. And the truth is, when One Piece wants you to care about someone, it makes you care. Think of characters like Bon Clay, Garp, or even random side characters like the citizens of Ohara. They're not forgettable when their moment comes. So yes, it's a lot, but that's what allows the story to keep evolving, even after 1,000 episodes. So is it fair? I'd say it's not a flaw, it's ambitious storytelling on a scale that most series can't even dream of. The next point is the fandom. And let's be honest, One Piece fans can be intense. Some are amazing, and others will attack you even if you suggest Naruto had a better fight. Every big fandom has its toxic side, and the One Piece's peak fiction crowd, they're loud. But every fanbase is pretty bad. So, is it fair? I'd say it's fair, but I think it's like that for almost every anime you can think of. There's always going to be a toxic or bad group in a fandom, but you can't base the whole fandom off that one group. The next one is that the story is dragging. Some people say that the story has lost its momentum, that it peaked at Marineford or Enies lobby, and now it's just delays and lordoms. Yes, it's slower now, but that's because we're deep in Endgame. Oda is wrapping up 20 years of mysteries, and he has so much to write about. So yeah, it's dense, but it's also building towards a massive payoff. So is it fair? I don't think so. Oda's not stalling, he's orchestrating a finale that's been in the making for over 2 decades. And if you're paying attention, the depth and the detail are unmatched in most cases. And the last critique is that it's overrated. But overrated is subjective. One Piece is everywhere, it gets love from critics, fans, celebrities, and even other mangaka. It's also statistically one of the greatest pieces of fiction ever, and not just anime. So naturally, some people push back and say it doesn't deserve the hype. And again, it may not be for everyone, I'm not trying to change minds, but with emotional highs, the insane world building, and the decades of consistent storytelling, it's hard to say it's overrated. So is this fair? Not in my opinion. One Piece isn't perfect, of course, it has flaws, but it's hard to be perfect for almost 30 years straight. So whether you're a lifelong fan or just thinking about starting, know that some critiques are real, but the greatness is too. Which critique do you agree with the most? For me, it's the pacing. And which ones do you think aren't true? Drop your thoughts below, and if you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.